Great. Yeah. So years ago, I was an assisted living director, and I think it was at a community here in Charlotte while I had this happen. This is just one of those stories that I hope to not get teared up on your podcast telling it to you because one of those stories, whenever I think about it, it's just, so emotional. I've been in the senior living field for about 20 years now. And for the first 12 years of my career, I was an assisted living director. Well, as a director, I was very hands-on. I kind of had my door always open to staff, to residents, and to my chagrin, sometimes vendors, hey, Jamie, you got a minute? So I'm very aware of that now in terms of how I market myself. But this one instance I wanted to share with you, hospice, ironically, where we work today. Hospice is such a wonderful organization. I had a daughter who I knew her dad was transitioning, and hospice was involved. And so I was actually up in his apartment with his daughter. And it was very quiet, very peaceful. The hospice nurse was there, and the daughter and I were talking, and we knew his passing would be at any moment. And so she had this music, this kind of ballroom dancing kind of music in the background going. And she and I are just, talking peacefully. And the nurse was checking on him. And the nurse came over to the daughter and said, hey, it looks like your dad is really just about to pass. Right. And like the moment the hospice nurse said that, the daughter realized the song that was playing and came over and whispered into her dad's ear, Dad, this is the song you and Mom used to dance to. Look for her. She's going to be the one in the polka dotted dress out on the ballroom floor. Like the song that they resonated with them. She was saying to her dad, if you're passing on to that realm, make sure to look for Mom. She wore that pink polka dot dress. You know what I mean? And it was just like this beautiful moment of like, death is so sad, but it can also be celebratory. If you think about it, it's kind of a perspective. So I don't know. That was just something that's always stuck with me. It made me sort of reinforce why I love hospice and just being with families during this part of their life. I just take what I do with such an honor and so seriously.
That's quite touching.
Yeah, thanks.
So hello, this is Don.
And this is Gina.
With Focused Healthy Family, and this is podcast number 161. And today we are talking with Jamie Jolley with Blue Dot Cares. He's the senior placement specialist. Jamie graduated from Appalachian State in 2004 with his master's degree in gerontology, the study of aging. He then moved on to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and within months time was running the first independent living and assisted living community. He would go on to be the assisted living executive director and regional director over the course of the next 12 years. His wife and he moved from Chattanooga to Charlotte in 2011. In 2016, he decided to get out of the executive director role and join the senior placement and resource team with Care Patrol here in Charlotte. He worked with Care Patrol until 2022 and then joined the team with Blue Dot Cares.
Mm-hmm.
He truly enjoys helping families and their loved ones navigate the sometimes difficult process of aging and finding the best and most available resources. And Jamie, welcome. We're really glad to have you here. I coming to meet you and just I see your excitement in what you do, and I think it's so wonderful. And so anyway, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. As I mentioned to you this morning, I love podcasts. So any opportunity to be on one, I think is fantastic.
And it seems like, Blue Care does so much. So maybe talk a little bit about what you do and how you do it with Blue Care, and then we can go a little bit more into it.
Yeah. So Blue Dot Cares, we started, I think it was in about 2002 as a durable medical equipment company. We're a local Charlotte owned and operated company. Bill Lackey was talking about franchises today. I don't know if you heard him when he was mentioning that. We are a franchise in the sense that I think that we have an office in Ohio, but that is a friend of our owner, Kevin. So I think there's one other Blue Dot. So we're really just a small company. We started as a durable medical equipment company and then sold off that part of the business. I think maybe in 2015 to like Rotec, for example, is like an oxygen company, but they kept the Blue Dot name, which is a little bit confusing. So sold off that medical equipment side and then focused primarily on the caregiving side, the home care side. And Blue Dot did that. We still do that. That's still the predominant part of our business. And then in 2021 or 2022, we added the component of what I do. And what I do, Don and Gina, is I help families. Like I'll get a call. Like if either one of you all were looking for options for your aging mom or dad, let's just say that hypothetically, I would meet with you and find out really everything about them. What are their needs? I'm sure you all are probably familiar with the industry term activities of daily living, ADLs for short, bathing, dressing, grooming. What are their ADL needs? What part of town do they want to be in? What size community? What are their financial resources? Is your loved one a veteran or married to a veteran? All kinds of different things. And I really help families find, if they're looking for a community, well, let's start with these 3 or 4. And then if you want to go beyond there, we can go beyond there. But I just really try to make good, educated recommendations to families. And I don't push families to do anything. I just say, what do you want to accomplish? And I'll help you accomplish that. Yeah.
It sounds like we could have used your services. So last summer, we placed my dad in a facility.
Okay.
My mom was his primary caregiver. He had
Yep.
Parkinson's. And
Okay.
so I'm an occupational therapist by trade. So
Great.
having an understanding in the industry, I kind of did that legwork. But there's a lot to it. And we
Yeah.
kind of made a quick decision. And but yeah, having that support, because I know there's other companies out there. When I would try to locate and talk to, because I wanted to go directly to the facility, and there's some companies that don't provide that service. They use these other companies that are out there that step in and sounds like do similar to what you do. I don't know how different they are. Your company is from these other places, because I spoke to someone on the phone and he asked what I was looking for in the radius, and he gave me a list of facilities. So yeah, I don't know how different that is from how.
Yeah. So if I can say this without it, first, there are other agencies that do what we do locally. Senior Care Authority, Mike Mannion, he's great. I used to work locally with Care Patrol. They changed owners in 2021, which is why I switched to Blue Dot. The team at Blue Dot, just wonderful. But then, without sounding in any way like I'm being negative, A Place for Mom is the largest at what,
Right.
my role. But A Place for Mom is strictly over the phone. And as an assisted living director, I would often see them maybe send us a lot of unqualified leads. Like, this person has a budget of $2,000 a month. My community started at $4,500. Why are you sending this family to me? Or this person is physically aggressive and they're 54-year-old. That's not what we do. So with what I do, I really try to send, like, for example, I'm touring with a daughter tomorrow, or excuse me, not a daughter, a wife who's looking for respite options for her husband. Well, I didn't just say schedule tours at communities around her. I reached out to 8 or 9 different communities to ask if they even still do respite, because people don't really do respite anymore, and really try to make good, like I said, educated recommendations.
Right. So you do meet with people in person, which is
yes, absolutely. So I'll go meet with them, and I'll actually schedule the tours for them and then meet them on the tours. Why I think I have sort of a unique perspective is being a former assisted living director.
Sure.
So when I'm on the tours, I'm always kind of behind the marketing director and the family. I'm never leading the tours, but I'll say, oh yeah, remember we talked about this? Or you remember, oh, look, they're playing, like we were at a Brookdale Carriage Club, and I'll say, hey, look, they're playing Mahjong. And the family we were looking for, they were looking for their loved one who played Mahjong. But like, look, there they are right there playing Mahjong. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Know?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you do a lot of kind of hand holding kind of thing, which is a little unique. And I think it's something that we kind of want to do in a little bit too, is being able to consult with people and kind of hold their hand through stuff. We want to work on the communication part of it, how you communicate with those different, the hospice care, the nurses, and even your own family. I don't. It's a so much to it. That's the neat thing about it.
And sometimes, I'm sorry, Gina, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just gonna say it's helpful when you're in that position where you're finding a placement, because I'm sure you've noticed a lot of times it's kind of an emergency situation, or kind of we don't have a lot of time. They're in rehab, they can't go home. We got to find a place, right?
Totally.
And just having someone guide them, because even myself, when I was doing this, I'm the daughter, so I'm emotionally involved, and so having some outside perspective, and just having that support and knowing, someone to vet, like you said, that's saved a lot of time, I'm sure, for people to.
Yeah, time, and really answer questions, and I really try to encourage families to be more proactive than reactive, like you said. Like, a lot of times it's, yes, they're in hospital, we're going to rehab, I've got to find a place. And frankly, I move at my family's pace. I've gotten calls for somebody, hey, I'm looking probably 2 years from now, but I'd like to know what's out there. Great. Let's do some visits so you'll know. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any in the meantime. You know what I mean? Don, one of the things you had said about communication, I'm guessing, is that also maybe for between family members? Like,
Yes.
Well, yeah,
yeah.
we, because, well, like I don't know if you know, I'm an EFT practitioner, so my work is working with people bringing down their anxiety. So,
Hmm.
and that to me is kind of plays in with the role of communication. We find uh, communication can really drive the anxiety up, and we want to bring it down, and so that's part of the what we're trying to work on.
It's
But
great.
Yeah, we've done some talks. In fact, we're doing one tomorrow at some assisted living facilities, places like that. And we've been focusing on communicating with your loved one with dementia.
Mm.
And but yeah, it expands to not only communicating with them, but your other family members and the caregivers that are, direct hands-on with someone. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah, yeah. I had a call yesterday. It was three brothers, and one of them, two of them are local, and one's out of town. Well, I've been communicating with two of them, and they had selected a community, a really lovely community. The community had assessed. They were going to be signing yesterday, and the in-town brother, who was not really involved with the process, said, "Nope, this is ridiculous. I don't want them to go there. I'm going to take them back to my house." And the other two brothers were like, "What? What is happening here?"
yeah,
So just the family dynamics can be so tricky to navigate, you know?
Mhm. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
Well, that's one thing we found, and and when you're talking about, well, it's interesting because the two you were talking to, they were both out of town. Is that what you said?
One's in town, one's out of town. So I
Oh, okay.
toured with one of the in-town brothers. I'd never met the other in-town brother, but it was this guy who said, "I don't want them." And it was a lovely, it's one of the Walton communities. If you know, the Walton
oh,
Woods are
oh yeah.
really nice,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Nope, nope, I don't want them to go there. They're coming home with me." And the other two brothers are like, "What are you doing?" So you could tell there's the dynamics between the brothers wasn't necessarily the best.
Right, and someone to jump in uninvolved, and all of a sudden they're involved and wanting to take
Yes.
over, and not realizing, people don't often realize the positive sides of these communities and how
Hmm.
engaging it can be, for someone, and
Well, yeah, we
provide.
talked to somebody. They were talking about hadn't even thought about. I think it was Sharon. We kind of talked about how they get into this community, and a lot of times they were living on their own, or they didn't
Hmm.
really have some of their friends have died and things like that. And when they get
Hmm.
into a community like that, they're able to kind of readjust and find friends, and it's a whole different living situation. And this poor guy, he's not gonna. I don't think he maybe can realize what it's going to take for him to take that person in, you
Totally.
know,
Totally.
'cause we've done work on Gina's been doing some videos of how to get him in and out of a kit, how to get him in and out of the bathroom, and how to get the chair all these
Oh,
different
wow.
pieces that we want
Looking
to
Yeah.
at the
start
home
putting out
environment, the
there.
safety aspects,
Yeah.
And you don't realize, I mean, when we were first talking with Gina about, you know, well, what do they do when they get in there? And she said, well, wait a minute. Let's talk about outside, just getting from the car to the into the door
Hmm.
before they even get into the house. Are
Hmm.
they going to, so there's so much to that, and I think that's what, it sounds like you try to talk through these people and talking to them about, hey, you got to think about this stuff before you just jump on dad coming home. It's nice to have him come home, but
Right.
that's a lot of work for them to
A
do.
100%. My parents took care of my mom's mom for like 9 years in their home. They brought her into the home, and this was like when I was kind of coming out of high school through college and stuff. And I mean, I can vividly remember my dad just being just so distraught, just so stressful, and he was like, for me, when I had to bathe my mother-in-law, that was a little bit too much for me. It sounds like such a loving gesture, but you're giving so much of yourself. You know what I mean? And one thing I really try to encourage, either daughters or spouses, whoever the decision maker is, as we're trying to care for their person who has needs, is like if it's a wife, yes, it's so noble that of course you're going to take care of your husband, but you also have to protect yourself. I mean, like we are all human and we have one life. And if you just give so much of yourself to one person, your health's going to get worn down mentally, physically, your finances. I mean, there's so many, you have to consider the other person as well, you know?
And that's the biggest reason we moved my dad. My mom was his primary caregiver. She was
Mm-hmm.
paying for caregivers to come in the home, but she kind of decided she didn't want someone there 24/7 or
Mm-hmm.
even even 8 hours a day. And we were worried about the toll it was taking on her. She
Yeah.
had limited time to go out and take care of herself, do exercise. She was very active. She still is very active. And so that was kind of our, yeah, you're doing a great job, Mom. And yet
Hmm.
this is becoming more difficult.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Well, now,
so
do you think, are you going to talk to this other brother and talk to him a little bit about it, or how do you work that?
That's a great question. So, of the two brothers, I have a better relationship. I want one of them I've been talking to just because he was my initial point of contact, and he's just been the guy I've been speaking with the most. And he had shared some frustration with his third brother. I just got this word like yesterday evening that the community called me and said, "Hey, Jamie, by the way, this just happened." So the one brother I've been working with, he's on my list to speak to today and say, "Hey, is there anything you need? Because it sounds like your brother's made another decision." You know what I mean? But it's
Hmm.
hard because like I never, other than maybe what could be best for their families, I never try to convince anybody of anything that would benefit me. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no.
Obviously,
right.
like, and just to kind of clarify how I do what I do, or my services are a free service to families. Okay. There's
Okay.
no ever any cost for any assistance I provide. People will often say, "Well, Jamie, how do you get paid?" Well, I get paid a referral fee for a private pay placement in assisted living, memory care, not skilled nursing, assisted living, memory care, independent living, or a family care home, if you know what those are. So,
Mhm.
of course, it benefits me to place families. And it was, sure, of course, disappointing to hear they're not going to be moving into Waltonwood, but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to that son. Hey, I'm here, but I'm not going to be like, you really should reconsider. This is, I mean, they've got to figure that out. They don't need me in their ear saying, "Hey, you need to get on your brother." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
your role is to help support them in finding the best place, but if they change their mind or whatever, yeah,
you
that's a whole
probably want
nother.
to put them on your Rolodex for about 6 months or a year
Yeah.
down the
Yeah.
road and
Oh,
say,
totally.
by
Totally.
the way, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. I definitely have like follow ups with people.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
one thing I did want to talk about was that, so yes, I'd mentioned I get paid a referral fee for private pay placements. Uh, Probably, I don't know, 25 or 30% of the calls I get are for families needing assistance finding skilled nursing options or needing assistance finding Medicaid options.
Mm.
You know, because even though I don't get a referral fee, I would never say, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." You know what I mean? I just literally spend as much time as I can answering questions, giving them every single resource I can think of. You know what I mean? In some cases, calling skilled nursing, finding availability for them, checking state survey scores, that type of thing, getting them in touch with the right people. For Medicaid, for example, I mean, that's a whole other conversation of qualifying and those who don't, but really just helping those families out as much as I can. You know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
really see it almost like as a pro bono service to the city of Charlotte. You know what I mean? And
Sure,
to the residents to help these families.
sure.
Yeah.
well, now I was kind of curious. Now, now you mentioned about your parents going through with
Hmm.
their parents. How have you been able to involve any in your own parents and are your your wife's parents? Is there any of that going on for you right now?
That's a fantastic question. I will answer that honestly and almost hopes that my parents never see this. I'm kidding. It's so funny because I specialize in helping seniors and their families and have done so for 20 years. And my own parents can be very difficult. you know, my dad is 81. My mom is 79. My mom has early onset Alzheimer's dementia.
Mm.
Uh, Forgetful. I mean, ask me the same thing so often. They live in Columbia, South Carolina, so they come up pretty frequently. But ask me the same thing, it repeats the same thing. But stuff like my mom, she just got a new car, and the car she had before this had 8 dings all over her car, like
Mm.
bumps and like little scrapes and bumps and stuff. And she was like, "Well, people just must keep hitting me." And it's like, "Oh my gosh, nobody's hitting you." And it's actually pretty dangerous that you're probably still driving. Or my mom finally convincing my mom to go to a neurologist and me saying, "Hey, listen, can I come down there and be a part of that appointment? I just want to listen to what they have to say and offer my opinion on kind of what's going on." "No, you're going to want to put me in a home." "Well,
Oh,
no, that's not my goal. And that wouldn't benefit me to put you in a home in Columbia. I mean, what are you talking about? But so it's like I see the resistance in my own parents that I see in
mm.
other families. And even though
Hmm.
I'm an expert, if you will, in what I do, it doesn't make their journey any better. It's really how
No.
they choose to receive it and go through it themselves.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah. There's
yeah.
that stigma with I mean, your parents same age as mine, and but in even the older generations, I don't want to go in a home that they have
Hmm.
this image of what, a home looks like, kind of an old style nursing home. And um,
Well, it
yeah.
was today in the Tepa Snow. She
Hmm.
talked the last. I think one of the last lines she said was that I'm trying to remember now, but that home is a feeling, not a
Not a
place.
place.
You
Yes.
know,
It's very good. I
and
love that.
that makes a lot of sense because yeah,
Hmm.
because yeah, I think the nursing homes that used to be, there's very few of those left like that. Now it's all very, they're pretty modern and up to date. But
Yeah, yeah. And that's honestly, Don, like part of my responsibility I see is educating people because
Mhm.
sometimes it's not as much, say, the daughters who are maybe have done a little bit, sons, daughters, whomever the decision makers done a little bit of research, but it's
Mhm.
their loved one who has that misconception that, oh, it's going to be a nursing home because that's all that was until like the mid to late 90s was
mhm.
Mhm.
pretty much just nursing homes. And I can't tell you how often I've not met families, but helped families find a community. And then they say, God, I wish I'd done this like a few months ago.
Mhm.
Most families don't, most loved ones don't want to go into a community because they have that misconception. And, there's pride. There's a lot of things that go into that. But a lot of times when they get there, they're like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is like being in a nice hotel with activities and good meals, and I don't have to think about my laundry. You know what I mean? There's a lot of pluses.
How do you? It sounds like you've talked some ahead of time. Do you have a lot of times where you have people that are, like you said, the person that called that they're probably a couple of years away from it, but they wanted to find out. Do you get a lot of that of people wanting to
Yeah.
find out early?
Yeah, like I'm touring tomorrow with a wife. I mentioned the respite. She knows her husband wants to stay at home and knows that finding respite options are hard, but wants to just be prepared for like a trip sometime later this year. That's a little bit of a unique one because so many communities don't do respites. And I've explained to her that while we can find communities and tour them that have respite, there's no guarantee they'll have a room available when you want it. So that's a little bit
Yeah.
trickier.
Mhm.
I do get a lot of calls for families who are looking within the next month or two. You know what I mean? It again kind of goes back to that thing where they don't want to have to do it, but they can see the writing on the wall and know they should. You
Mhm.
know, and one of the things that I also do is sit down with families because a lot of times families will hear what a potential price could be for a community, right? And I say, yeah, that is a lot of money, but let's sit down and like it's a simple exercise. Be like, okay, so what's your mom or whomever's monthly income? Okay, what are their assets? Do they own their home? All these kind of financial questions, and they're looking at a ballpark level of care between $5,000 and $7,000. Well, if you do that, times 12 months or divide, their assets, their complete financial picture by that monthly rate, they could maybe afford that for 4.5 years.
Mhm.
And you know what? Your mom's 89 years old. There's no telling how long any of us will live, but that she could afford it for about 4.5 years. So it's kind of helping them kind of plan down the road a little bit as well and not get that sticker shock of, oh my God, it's so much money.
Mhm.
I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but yeah, I get kind of the whole gamut of looking now and looking in the future.
Yeah, I know the other challenges we rent, is the bed availability.
Mm-hmm.
And there's such a demand right now, and having the facilities having openings, that it
Totally.
puts a little bit of a pressure in the situation. So I imagine that's a bit of a juggling act for you. Someone might have a place they love, but there's no open apartments or rooms or.
Absolutely. Like let's take the Huntersville Mooresville area. There's the Laurels and Havens Highland Creek. That's in Highland Creek. There's basically three assisted living and memory care communities in Huntersville and three in Mooresville. Four of those six combined typically stay full. Like typically stay full with a waiting list.
Mhm.
So it's like, well, if you have somebody looking immediately, I mean, the other two options aren't necessarily bad options. At least one of them is a pretty good option, but just hasn't stayed full all the time. But hey, do we need to look at Salisbury, Concord, Statesville? And I tell families, as wide of a net as you want to cast, that'll just give us more options.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Well, but then that probably adds in, then they got the driving and to take care, that adds probably quite a bit to it if they have to go so many, like instead of going to Statesville, you go to Concord or go to
Yeah.
Salisbury up in our area, that's a long drive for somebody. I know with her mom, she's having degenerate some eye degeneration, and having to travel that much would be tough
Hmm.
for her. So,
Yeah,
Yeah, when we
yeah.
found a place for my dad, it was like, okay, we need something here. The whole point, we had just moved here. I want to be able to go visit my dad every day.
Hmm.
And because of whoever I was talking to at one of those companies, it's like, no, we're not going to Concord. We're not.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
whole
yeah.
point of him being close is my mom's going to move in a community down the road. And,
Yep,
sometimes that convenience is more important. And yeah,
totally.
looking at those factors that matter, right? Sometimes, they're not going to be around very much. The family is really busy or whatever,
Hmm.
versus just wanting something that where the distance is what's most important.
Totally. And even conversely, I've seen it where you have like a daughter or a whomever, a responsible party that feels such pressure to be there every day. And they've said, well, gosh, but it's almost like a self-induced pressure. The
Yeah,
situation might not dictate the need for them to be there, but they feel like they have to be there every day.
sure.
And it's like, well, you know what? If you're happy about the community and they're 30 minutes away, maybe that'll give you a bit more of your life back.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean?
Not
I'm
having
not
to.
saying that's always the case, but it's kind of
No,
like
but
two sides.
that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it is, yeah, when you are that close, that demand of, to be able to come more often. So yeah, sometimes a little bit of distance is
Hmm. Are you all
beneficial.
familiar with the family care home model? Do y'all know anything about that?
not really. I don't. No, you
I
might a
mean,
little bit.
I've seen some places where people in home family care, because I know that was one place came up on the radar for my dad, but
Hmm.
I mean, I guess could go into that a little bit more for our listeners, especially.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's a really neat model. What it is, it's a six-person residential type setting. It's almost always in a ranch style house, one level. They're regulated, operated just like an assisted living or memory care. You can go on the state website, you can check their state survey scores, any deficiencies, but they run at minimum a 1 to 6 staff to resident ratio, which is better than just about any memory care out there, and probably as good, if not better, than a lot of skilled nursings. And in some cases, they'll run a 1 to 3 staff to resident ratio. Some people just aren't familiar with that model. And I think, like, I don't think of every community as an option for every person, right? So, like a family care home, maybe it's somebody who is a big fall risk, right? And leaving them alone in their apartment is a real big concern. Well, if they're going to be within feet of in a model that has a 1 to 6 staff to resident ratio, that might help reduce their falls, right? Or maybe it's a situation where socialization, like big parties and outings, aren't really their concern, but it's more like, let's make sure that mom is bathing regularly and eating, that you're monitoring her meal intake. I think of the family care homes being more about the importance of care than like the hospitality side.
Hmm.
Mm.
And there are some really good options in the greater Charlotte area. There are some in the like Denver Cornelius area that are about like 7,000 a month, and then there are some where I'm sitting here right now in Charlotte that are 13,000 a month. And so it just really depends on what you're looking for. It's just something that I don't think is a widely known entity, but I think can
Sure.
work for a lot of families.
Yeah, and you touch on something there because not everybody wants to be a joiner and somewhere where there's a whole lot of
Sure.
people going on. So it's a more of a home environment. And yeah, just knowing that what's out there like that, people don't
Yeah, I
realize.
didn't realize that. I mean, is that something that's throughout like the nation? You have them throughout.
I don't know. I was not familiar with them until I got here. I moved here, like I mentioned in my bio, in 2011. And that's when I started to become more familiar with them. I had just, maybe they exist. Because I mentioned being a regional director. I worked as an executive director, like a traveling in like Arkansas, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, all over, a few different locations of Tennessee. But I just never remembered hearing about the family care anywhere else. And then I got here and it's like a pretty prevalent model. And
Mhm.
there's people there. I just spoke to a nurse last week who's opening up two communities, one in Huntersville, one in Morrisville. So I think you'll start seeing them pop up more often.
Huh, that's interesting.
It's
You know,
nice to have, yeah, lots of options for people and just,
I mean, my mind goes back to, yeah, I'm sure it's much better. I'm thinking that an old house with a couple people living in it, kind of thing. So I hope it's a lot better than that. I would think it would be if you
oh
checked
yeah,
it out. But um,
yeah.
so You've been in the community in the healthcare community for a long time.
Hmm.
It really helped. I would imagine helps you be able to be right there with them, like you say, holding hands with them, taking them through that, being able
Hmm.
to use your experience of knowing these inside and out of these different locations. I would
Yep.
think anyway.
Yeah.
Um, I take it that that helps you a lot compared. Are competitors the same way, or are they do they have do they just based on theory versus really knowing what they're doing?
That's a great question. I mean, I can't speak for a place for mom, and I used to work with Care Patrol, so I know two of their associates. And again, there's a senior care authority, Mike Mannion, and his team. I think we all kind of do the same thing the same way in terms of like learning about families. I Care Patrol and I believe Senior Care Authority are also free services to families.
Mm-hmm.
So I know at least the people that I know that work for those companies, they're good human beings. One thing, and Don, I don't know if you've been in a room where I said this last week at Terabella. One thing I love about this field that we're in is that it's typically made up of good human beings. It's
Yeah.
typically made up of people who want to help other people. It's not a, I mean, of course, they're like Senior Care Authority and Care Patrol are technically competitors of mine, but I'm not out there going, oh, it's Care Patrol. You know what I mean? It's like I like those people. They're good people, and I just think that in general, people help each other even though they might be competitors. You know what I mean? It's not a
Sure.
cutthroat field that we're in here. It's meant more to serve than it is to profit. Is really how I look at it.
Well, that's the thing about. I think we're they're getting more and more of that. We need that in there right now because, like I say, getting into these into the hospitals and into the hospital, their nursing is being slowly drawn. They don't have as many people coming in, so they're being drawn, and overused a lot of
As far as
times.
the time to spend with
And so
people
we
and
need
Mm-hmm.
people outside of it that can help do like like we talked about the communication, being able
Mm-hmm.
to talk to them and be able to get them. So because they, like I say, I know it's nice to know that there's certain ratios of nurses to the
our staff to, yeah.
stager, but
Mm-hmm.
they're all drawn very thin. So we need people in here, like you said, that are good people that are willing to get them set up, understand what's going on, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it sounds like really what you do. Uh,
Yeah. And there's, I mean, there's a lot of like entities out there kind of beyond just a community. You know, not everybody wants to go or can afford to go to a community. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so if I one of the toughest phone calls that frankly I get more often than I would like are families who make over the assisted living or memory care monthly income Medicaid threshold. They make too
Mm-hmm.
much for Medicaid, but not
Mm-hmm.
enough to afford most
mm,
communities. So
Yeah.
they're in this like if you make $2,000 a month and you need an assisted living, I know one option, and that's in like rural upstate South Carolina. Like there's no $2,000 assisted living community in all of Charlotte.
Right. Right.
You know, so what do you do? If you have somebody who's falling or needs bathing assistance, a lot of times people think, oh, well, I'll just go to a nursing home. Well, a nursing home, Medicaid's not going to pay for you to be in a nursing home unless you have a very high level of need. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's how they kind of kick it down to memory cares and assisted livings. They want you to qualify there first, and then they'll pay for nursing home level of care. So
Sure.
oftentimes I'll get a family, dad makes $2,100 a month and he needs bathing, dressing, and medication management assistance. I'm like, oh gosh. If you don't want to consider the one community I know in upstate South Carolina, then I help them formulate a plan. You know, there's it used to be PACE of the Southern Piedmont. It's now called Senior TLC. I don't know if you know about this organization. It's in like
no.
the Plaza Midwood area. PACE, it used to be, it was called PACE. It's Program for All Inclusive Care of the Elderly, PACE. And it
Okay.
basically services moderate to lower income seniors. And what the senior, it's now been renamed Senior TLC. It acts as kind of like a day program. Like you have to
Okay.
financially qualify for it, but
Mm-hmm.
it acts as a day program where you could go and socialize. They, I think, offer breakfast and lunch. They have a beautician on site. They have activities. They have a doctor that comes in. So it kind of acts as an adult daycare for moderate to lower income seniors.
Hmm.
You know, there's another Michelle Allgood opened up Gracious Living Adult Daycare. She has one in Pineville and in Huntersville. I want to say they are less than $100 a day. So that provides for a daughter or a spouse who needs to leave their loved one so they can go live their life a little bit, whether it's work or grocery shopping. It gives them a safe alternative than just leaving them home alone.
Sure.
In full transparency, like our home care services, for example, most home care companies are between $32 and $36 an hour. We're 34 an hour. Most companies have a 4-hour minimum. So if you do 4 times 34, or what is that, 146, something like that, $146 for a 4-hour visit. I mean, that's not inexpensive, And if another thing, family's like, well, I'll just get round the clock care, right? If you did if I've done the math a bunch, if you do like $34 an hour times 24 hours a day times 30 days in a month, that's about $24,000 a month. You subdivide that out, $12,000 for 12 hours a day, $6,000 for 6 hours a day. That's a lot of money, For people who can afford it and want their loved one at home, that's great. But for those who can't, what do they do?
Sure.
And that's where I really try to give as much as I can to those folks, because God, it just breaks my heart. Folks that don't know where to turn or aren't aware of Senior TLC or, Michelle Allgood, those types of organizations.
Yeah, I talked to someone, they didn't even realize that there was I think it was a program through the veterans, that it was a daycare center that the veteran, it's like, no one ever told me this, that this was out there. And I know from our experience being in the hospital, social workers used to have the time to help educate you and give you, even in, skilled nursing facilities, and they just don't anymore. There's so much other stuff they have to do and take care of that social work part has gone kind of missing. And because that's kind of what you're doing, right? And helping to advocate for them and finding resources out there, because I know there's grants. My mom found grants through the Parkinson's Association to help pay for caregivers, and just knowing what's out there and these options. Like, these daycare centers are great because it can give that peace of mind.
Totally, and a little stress relief, But like I have a really good contact at the Mecklenburg DSS office. I've given her number out probably more times than she wants. She sent me all the required Medicaid paperwork that I send to families. I have a list of communities that accept Medicaid. I show them how to go on the state website and let's look. Okay, they're a 1-star building. You might want to stay away from them. Let's look at a 3 or 4-star building. So just it's so tough to where do you start and who do you trust? That I'm like, gosh, it's an honor to hopefully be that for you.
Well, and where to start and where to begin, but where do you end too? I mean,
right.
There's so much information to give out that you could go on for quite a long time on stuff.
Totally.
It's good to know about those resources out there, because there are a lot of people, like you said, that fall in that moderate to low income where they don't qualify for Medicaid. I remember the days, I've been in healthcare 30 years, before the Medicare changes, when there was no coverage for prescriptions. And so many seniors just couldn't afford, they didn't qualify for Medicaid, but they couldn't pay for their prescriptions. And those people are, really probably the ones that struggle the most, because because you can't afford these places for the most part.
Right. It's heartbreaking. And so many people have a misconception that either a nursing home or our government will take care of them later in life. And it's like, no, you have to meet these certain requirements, and maybe, but it's not a given, So it's something like I soapbox to all my friends. You know what I mean? Like, you make sure you're prepared, make sure you're thinking down the road, and make sure you're staying as healthy as you can, that kind of stuff,
Yeah, we talk about having these conversations ahead of time, talking to your loved ones before this is a need, which some people don't like to, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to talk about that.
Right.
I dealt with this a little bit with my own mother, with my dad. And, I think you might need to look at having a caregiver more regularly. I don't think we're there yet, and just, we don't want to come to that place, and realize that, okay, we could get to that place where we need help, or we can't be by ourselves, or driving is a huge one.
Yes, totally.
Well, it sounds like you've got that conversation coming pretty soon yourself with your mom somehow.
Yes. My mom and my dad has had recent troubles with his knees. And I've had to say to him 3 or 4 times, have you gotten a physical therapist to come in? Your doctor will write you an order if the need is there. Get physical therapy to come into your, I will. And it's like, why are you kicking the can down the road, man? You know what I mean? You got to get on this.
Well, and you think about a knee and driving, if are they going to be able, that's what Gina has to assess a lot of times with people is, can they make that change? Can they still steer the car? Can they do, all that kind of stuff has to be thought of. But yeah,
Hmm.
you've got that conversation coming. We've been through it a little bit.
Well, my dad was just obsessed with driving, and when his dementia got, it was mild and he had more awareness. And then
Hmm.
as it progressed, he couldn't see his deficits. He's like, I've been driving longer than you have. I'm a good driver. I had to take him to the rehab hospital to fail a driver's assessment test because I
Oh,
knew he wasn't going to pass it.
yeah,
And, but I needed someone outside of even me to say this
totally.
is not, because he was actually only driving a golf cart at that point,
Hmm.
but he'd get up early in the morning and he used to drive himself his physical therapy appointment. They lived in Sun City,
Hmm.
and you could access this one shopping center, which was where his occupational therapist office was, and there was a
Hmm.
Wendy's there from the back of the community, because otherwise you couldn't really drive your golf cart just on the regular streets.
Right, right.
Right. So he'd go out early in the morning. One morning, my mom gets woken up at like 7 a.m. with the police standing there with my dad. He had left the house in the dark, driven the golf cart, wound up through
On
the
the
through
road.
the
Yeah.
woods and the back windy road that goes behind Sun City. He was out on the road and
Oh,
get the vehicle like stuck, and a
oh,
policeman had happened to come by, and figured out he was not drinking. He had
I was gonna
Parkinson's.
say.
They could have, it could have been a violation because
hmm,
he's so when that happens, like, okay, he's not even safe to drive the golf cart anymore,
yeah,
and he wanted to buy a sports car again. And
hmm,
Well, he's wanted to do that since about
yeah.
the day he died. He still was wanting to get thought looked at Corvettes and said, "Oh, I'm going to get one of those,"
right, right.
And I would just at that point you play along with them,
Yeah,
"Oh yeah, we'll have to take a look at that one,"
hmm,
So
But
yeah,
it's a tough thing. It's a tough
yeah.
thing looking at driving. And that's where these communities are great because they provide transportation and things.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. How did your dad respond when the doctor maybe said that he failed,
so
or
so we
whomever the
went,
driving? Yeah.
yeah, it was an occupational therapist did the assessment, and it's very comprehensive. It's cognition, it's your reaction time, it's visual perceptual skills. And so I waited outside and then invited me in, and she looked at him and said, "How do you think you did?" He's like, "I think I did fine." And she went over the areas and he was shocked. Like, he was ready to buy a car. The whole
Mm-hmm.
drive down, he was talking about how and I said, "Okay, what's the plan B, Dad? What if, you
Yeah.
don't
Good
pass it?
question.
Where does it you want to go? Can we hire a driver to take you places?" And he was just shocked. And then he fixated on the cognitive questions. And she asked me what day it was, and he just fixated on this one section of the tests. And he was also like, so he was an engineer, and then he was a financial planner and would have to pass tests. And he's like, I didn't have enough
Hmm.
time to study for this test. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then he got fixated. So it was difficult for him, but he accepted it, but it's like we needed that outside person to come in. Like the whole way
well,
there, I knew he's not going to pass this.
Hmm.
And
well, didn't you say that there was somebody in it that kind of not really encouraged him, but didn't but kind
so
of made him feel like he
one
could
of his
still pass
one
it
of his
somehow.
therapists was working on the skills needed. And it's like, okay, you want to be able to drive, let's work on these skills. And it gave
Hmm.
him a false hope.
Hmm.
I've learned working with I asked people what they did for a living because I know the engineer type. And it's like he had a goal in mind. He was going to practice these skills,
Yeah.
and then even going back to the doctor, he said, "Will I ever be able to drive again?" And the doctor said to him, "Well, you could always take that test again." And it's frustrating to me because I'm like, they need to be the bad guy. They're looking at this
Totally.
man. It was
Totally.
his neurologist. It's like, he can't drive.
Wow.
You're
Yeah.
a neurologist who specializes in
Yeah.
movement
Yeah. Yeah.
disorders. Yeah, to say that and give that false hope. I mean, I guess there's certain personalities that might like, okay, someday, or, not
Mm-hmm.
fixate on it. But my dad was like, well, I was told, if I
Yeah.
take the test again, then I could drive.
Yeah.
And
Gave him a lot of false hope, and that's
Yeah.
not because, like I said, then he's still looking at cars, and he's still, and not that he can't do that, but it really built a lot in him that he didn't need to have right then.
Yeah, I
No,
had to
I
kind of
hear
talk
you.
with this therapist about that to be like, okay, you're talking about doing this, but you don't understand that my dad's
Hmm.
realistic and he's looking at this, even though he has dementia, he thinks he can practice and everyone tells me I'm doing great. It's like, well, you're doing great for someone with Parkinson's, but it doesn't
Right.
mean you're doing great enough to
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 keep
safely
driving.
drive a car
Yeah.
anymore.
You said a couple of things there that resonated with me. My mom, when she went to her neurologist, I'm sure you know what a mini mental is. They ask you a
Yes.
number
Oh
of
yeah.
questions. Well, one of the questions they say is, "Hey, I'm going to say like 4 words, and I'm going to ask some more questions." So when she took the mini mental, she did well, but my dad said that when they said, ball, guitar, light, so and so. While she was doing the other question, she was going ball, guitar, light, so and so, ball, guitar. She kept repeating the words so she wouldn't forget the words. That's like, no, it's not. You're not supposed to sort of game the test. You're supposed to organically try to remember. But another thing you said is trying to make the doctor or the medical professional the bad guy. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Helping to remove the daughter or the wife from being the one saying, we really think you need to go to a community. Having somebody
Right.
else say, we need to, we should, it's safer if we take away your keys, you
And
know?
yeah, and because they need to step in and do that because they don't realize the pressure on the family and they're the ones who
Mm-hmm.
have to live with these people and that yeah, I know I went to school in Pennsylvania and I worked at a rehab facility and worked with brain injury patients and I think there were different regulations there as far as if someone had a stroke or a brain
Mm-hmm.
injury that in order to go back to driving. And I moved to North Carolina and like there's no regulations. Someone because I worked in the rehab hospital in Charlotte and
Mm-hmm.
someone has a car accident and they recover from the brain injury and they can just go back on the road and
Well, you actually had a race car driver that shouldn't been back on the road, but they gave him his driving license back. I can't remember who it was
yeah.
at the time, but one of
Wow.
the big race car drivers that came into the facility, and there was
Yeah.
no way he could drive, but they didn't stop him.
But
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of
Yeah.
those
Wow.
regulations not being in place. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like we need to look at these things. We they don't realize seniors actually can cause more accidents than teenagers.
No, I
And
know.
and it, for their safety and safety of others.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not proud that my mom has dings on her car. I mean, it's like
But she's not the only one.
I
It's
know, but I just can't believe. I mean, they literally just bought her a new Volvo SUV. Like, I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? Let her keep the other car that had the dings on it. Why is she dinging up a new car? So yes, it's very
well,
frustrating.
hopefully maybe she will be hearing this. Maybe us two can talk her through it, and get her out of it.
it's a
Maybe
Right,
the
tough
right, right,
expert.
thing.
right.
It's a tough thing though.
Yeah,
But
my
yeah,
sister. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say, Gina?
no, go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say my sister is a licensed clinical social worker, and she has a marriage and family counseling practice. So
Hmm.
we're both in like a helping profession and want to support them, but we're both like, what is going on with mom and dad? What are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's tough because you're emotional about it and it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to step back and be removed.
Well, especially if they tell you, well, I've been driving longer than you have, kind of thing
Yes.
but we'll
Yeah.
leave that for you to handle.
Thanks. Yes. Yes. Maybe they could be on your podcast. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if they want to, that's fine.
Well,
But
I'm seeing a lot of seniors in rehab who are in car accidents and maybe it's not
Mm-hmm.
always their fault, but
Right. Right.
it's one thing to be 40 and to be in a car accident, but to be 75 or 80 and break
Yep.
your leg, the recovery can be a whole lot harder. And I know I used to appeal to my dad as far as the safety of other people, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that
Yeah. That's good. Good point.
And the
yeah,
other
that
thing
that
I
is.
tried to he had back surgery, he had spinal
Uh-huh.
stenosis, and so he had numbness in his legs. And I tried to focus on the physical aspects versus his cognition. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what if your legs go numb, Dad? It's, just because that's a little easier for someone to deal with than, your
But yeah,
your
it's a
brain's not
cognitive
working and
issue,
you're
or
you're
Right.
not
or
able
Right.
to your memory's not good anymore because that they're going to fight. They're going to it's
That's
hard to
fun. I've never thought about that before. Like people being less defensive about physical ailments versus their mental ailments. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You might get more defensive. Like, no, I'm sharp. What are you talking about? But oh yeah, you're right.
right.
My leg might give out.
Right. And
Yeah.
just thinking about, well, and what if someone, what if, kids running out in the road, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
react in time, if something, the unexpected. It's like, yeah, you
Right.
can get on the road and drive if there's no cars. But yeah, it's that anticipating those
So
challenges.
just keep an eye on your mom and what her physical things are. If she's got,
Yeah.
knee pain, you can use that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or
And
install a
honestly,
camera.
what's that?
Install a camera on the
Right, right,
car.
right, right. We do have a like a find my
Oh
phone
yeah.
and keys. We know where she is.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing, and this is kind of what we're talking about, we haven't really said it verbatim, but like I wish there was a better term, but like white lying. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's something
Hmm.
that is definitely a strategy that has to be or is used in terms
Mm-hmm.
of trying to convince your loved one what needs to be done.
Sure.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
don't think there's, I think there's,
I think that someone, is it TIPA? Somebody has a term for that. And yeah, it just kind of,
I think you have to. I mean, we've dealt with it even with some cognitive issues too, that, and it's not, if you're not hurting them by it, but
right.
helping them, I think it's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Because, and it all depends on the person and like their personality. That's, I ask what people do for a living and I can pick out the engineers pretty quickly
Hmm.
and just understanding how they like the information. Like some people want
Yep.
everything explained to them. Some people are not, interested in all that and just that dynamic, makes such a difference in how to approach people for
Yeah.
conversations like
Yeah.
this.
One question that I will ask, a decision maker, like a daughter or wife, whomever, is, what would you like to see for your loved one? Like, what is your personal
Yeah,
goal? You know what I mean?
yeah, and then yeah, asking that of the senior, what do they like to do, and then
Yeah.
talking them through it. If it's something that's unreasonable, is
Hmm.
not uh, disagreeing with it, but just kind of, okay, so you want to see that, and then get into other things that, to get away from it if it's not,
Hmm.
if it's something beyond, they're asking for to move to Aruba or something,
Right. Right.
you're not
Well,
going to do that, but
as
they
an
can
ex
sure dream of it.
sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
My dad had come to the place where he was saying to my mom, is there some place I can go? Like we knew he didn't like being a burden on my mom, even though he couldn't
Hmm.
quite say that. And so, but when we finally talked to him that we had found a place, we kind of did it, he asked, is there a view of the water? And that's one
Mm.
thing I hadn't thought about, that's something that he would want, that was important to him.
Yep.
And it's tough because you don't want to bring it up. Like with him, we couldn't bring it up too soon. We wanted to vet out the
Hmm.
process and do all that before we even brought it up to him, just because the anxiety level, as it was, he had a TIA the day he was supposed to move in.
Oh,
We wound up
wow.
in the hospital with stroke symptoms,
Yeah.
literally the day he was supposed to move in. So just even though he was okay with going, just that
Hmm.
anxiety. So that's a tricky thing is,
Yeah.
to talk to, someone who has more significant dementia. But yeah, finding out what the goals are for the family too. What do they
Hmm.
want to see? What's important? Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times it's even just giving them like just this simple statement sometimes get people peace of mind. Every assisted living, just about every single assisted living memory care, there's no long-term commitment. It's like regulatory speaking, it's a 2 week notice to leave. So
Hmm.
even that sometimes diffuses people. It'd be like, hey, you're not making, I mean, yes, you're signing a year at least, but you can break it with a 2 week notice. So
Yeah,
we want you to be happy, and give this a shot.
sure.
If you don't like it, let's try something else.
Sure.
So they don't feel boxed in, and it's really trying to, what I look for in this process, like I think of it as like checking boxes for family, like what is important to you, what resonates most with you, and let's find those options for you. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no perfect community, but if this community checks 8 out of your 10 boxes, that's pretty good. You know
Hmm.
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
And what's important to them. So,
And I'm glad you pointed that out because yeah, you signed the year contract. We're used to leases and things where
hmm.
you're required to stay that long. So knowing that, yeah, that all you need is a 2 weeks notice,
Yeah,
that does give that sense of relief.
totally, totally. It's not a big commitment. I mean, it's a lifestyle change, but if you're not happy, we can find something else for you,
Hmm.
you know?
Well, I think we could talk on this probably all day. It's been a great conversation. Like I said, didn't know where it was going to go, but I think it's gone down some really good stuff. Talked about a lot
Yeah.
of good stuff. Is there anything you want to kind of end up with, and also at the same time kind of tell how people can get a hold of you? But any thoughts that you want to give out right off the bat for somebody that's maybe got this journey ahead of them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So please, I mean, again, I don't see myself as a salesperson to families. I really want to help families accomplish what they would like to see happen for their loved ones. If you're seeing mom, dad, whomever in your life that is aging and is starting to need assistance, like we talked about, be more proactive than reactive. If
Hmm.
somebody wants to call me and say, hey, Jamie, here's what I have going on. What do you think? I'd be happy. I have those kind of conversations all the time. And sometimes, like I said, it's looking for home care resources. Sometimes, are they a veteran? Are they eligible for veterans benefits? Just
Hmm.
really helping them answer those questions. And let's just start having those conversations because, like you might have said, Gina, if you fall and in the hospital, then everything starts moving a lot quicker. You know what I mean? So go ahead and just kind of see what's out there. Oh, I like that community. I might revisit them. Or, oh, yeah, I talked to this home care company. I really like that person. Just so you kind of know where to turn once the need is there. I would just say, feel free to reach out to me. I know you're going to post my number, but it's 980-346-5311. My email is Jamie, Jamie, at blue.cares.com. That's all spelled out. The cares is plural. Yeah, we work with communities from Rock Hill to Statesville, Monroe, Gastonia, all over. And I even help families find options in other cities. I know, like we're not a franchise, Care Patrol is. So if I have a family looking to move their mom in New Jersey, I say, I bet you there's a Care Patrol franchise up there. Let me find that contact and give you that person's information. And that person in New Jersey will hopefully do what I would do here.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, Jamie, it's been wonderful to have you part of this. We may keep you on our list and join in another day for more. We'll see how things go with Mom. Maybe maybe 6 months, a year down the road, we'll catch up with you again. But it's been really a joy to talk with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated the opportunity. And maybe you should do like a panel or something, like have 2 other people on or something.
That's a great idea.
That's
something we haven't. I love that idea. That would be great.
Yeah. We'll bring you in on that.
Well, yeah, I'd love the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, for joining us, Jamie. And it's great to learn about you and what you do. And we really appreciate you sharing not only your professional stories, but your personal experiences too, because most of us, finding ourselves at that point with our parents, if they, live past the age of 60. So we appreciate those stories you've shared. Thank you to our audience for being here and listening. That's our podcast for today. Please leave a comment, like our podcast, share it with other people that would be interested in listening. Check out all this information at focusedhealthyfamily.com. Go to our website to learn about other things that Don and I do, consulting with people, to be able to access other podcast episodes that we've shared, to look at Ask the OT, the small videos that I'm doing on managing things in the home. And remember, you can find us on Facebook at Focused Healthy Family, Instagram, Focused Healthy Family 1, and YouTube. Again, these are streamed on YouTube as well as anywhere you listen to a podcast. And join us every Thursday when we have a different conversation or speak with a different guest on different topics relating to caring for your aging loved ones. And be on the lookout for that panel. I love that idea of putting that together, of having a group of people on, because there's so many different topics when we're talking about these things and having different perspectives. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.